So yesterday, we heard about how important it is to begin to talk about John the Baptist, who died by doing exactly what the disciples were now doing throughout Galilee, throughout all of the villages. Um, the very end of that paragraph was when Herod heard this. He said, John, the man I beheaded, has been raised from the dead. And suddenly we have a Markan version of a flashback. Mark goes back and he explains how John came to be beheaded. Now, he starts off saying Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested. He had him bound and put in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. Um, what happened is that Herod the Great, the Herod of Jesus's birth, had four sons living at the time that he died, and so he split his kingdom up into four parts. They weren't equal parts. To the son named for him Herod, he gave the largest part, the south, Judea and Samaria. To his other three sons, he gave smaller parts up in the north and the north east. And one of those three sons died shortly after, and one of the sons took that piece for himself. But Philip had the smallest part. It was way up in the northeast. And Philip had married a Jewess. Now, Herod in the south was ruling over Judea and Samaria. While he did that, he tried to be accepted by the Jews, but Herod himself was a Samaritan. He had a Samaritan wife. When he saw Philip's wife, a full Jewess, who was also a descendant of the Maccabees, of the Hasmonean dynasty, he said she would make a great wife. She is full Jew, and she's part of the last Jewish ruling dynasty. So he approached her, he proposed marriage to her, she divorced Philip, she went to live with Herod. And tomorrow we're going to see how little that really meant to her. This was definitely not a marriage of love. This was a political marriage. For John had been saying to Herod, it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. And so Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him. But she wasn't able to because Herod, her husband, feared John. He protected him. Knowing him to be a holy and a righteous man, when Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, and yet he loved to listen to him. That is interesting, and it kind of summarizes a lot of people's approach to Jesus today. A lot of people love the image of Jesus, the figure of Jesus, the love of Jesus, the ministry of Jesus, the way he worked with people, his humility. And yet when they hear some of what he said, they just can't accept it. There is a love-hate relationship that existed between Herod and John. Just like today, there's a love-hate relationship between the culture that we live in and Jesus. The culture loves Jesus, but they love him in their own way. When he says something that's uncomfortable for them, that love quickly turns to hate. I want to encourage you today to, in the culture that you live in, fully represent Jesus, knowing that that will cause people at times to really like what you're doing, and at times to really not like what you might be doing or what you might be saying. Stay true, represent Jesus, go and be the church. Tomorrow we'll finish our story about John the Baptist.